everyone, my name's Lorenza and I wanted to talk through tips for when you're cutting out patterns, and mainly these are tips for before you start cutting. So number one, always iron your patterns. These tissue paper patterns, they're wrinkle heaps, and if you've got lots of wrinkles in them, you've got lots of millimeters here and there, you're going to end up with literally centimeters that are wrong. So always give them a really good iron. With no steam. You don't want any water or steam near these patterns, and just a low heat, because if it's too hot they tend to sort of curl. So make sure you iron those patterns. Now the other thing, when you've got a pattern, I was saying a commercial pattern like this Diane von Furstenberg one here, they always come with these pattern layouts, and it'll have it for 150 centimeters or 115 centimeters width fabric. And it's really worthwhile following the layout they give here for laying your fabric in the pattern out, because it's so you minimize and waste the least amount of fabric. Now, when we're starting to lay out the pattern pieces, first thing you're going to do is obviously lay the fabric. Now, always put your fabric right sides together. I know you want to do it wrong sides together so you can look at the pretty fabric, but the reason being is that when you're going to be doing all these markings, like on your darts and things, you're going to need the markings all on the wrong side, because when you're sewing, you need to see, say if you're sewing a dart, you need to see those markings on the wrong side. You don't need those markings on the right side. They're kind of useless. So always put your fabric with the right sides together and do all those markings on the wrong side. So that's why you're going to be placing your patterns on the wrong side of the fabric. Now, most of the time we are laying the fabric and folding it over. So I'm just putting out the grain lines here on the pattern. So we're folding the fabric over. So what I do is I line up the selvage and the other side is the fold. So always remember your straight grain that I was pointing out for those big black lines on the patterns, that is your straight grain, and that needs to run along your selvage. That's the edge of the fabric there. So I just always repeat to myself, straight grain goes on selvage, straight grain goes on selvage. Just also pointing out the stretch there, you can see that the stretch is going from the fold to the selvage. So selvage to selvage, because that's the stretch that's going around your body. So see here, I think this is the bodice back. So as I'm laying that on, that would be going on the fold of the fabric. I'm just trying to get the fabric to sit nice and flat here. You want it to sit nice and flat so your grain line is flat. So here, this is the back, and that's got to go on the fold. So I would line it up there on the fold and then start pinning it. Now, when I pin pattern pieces, you're best off pinning the grain line first. Now on this is a back piece. This doesn't have a big black line on it, but we know the fold is the grain line. So I would tend to pin along the fold first, because you want that on the fold, really lining up on the fold, the pattern piece and the fold of the fabric. Then you can place all your other pins in. Now, when you're doing your pins, always try and put your pins in and push them out. So the pointy bit is pointing to the edge of the pattern, and sort of go around the pattern, as you can see the way I did there, because you're just sort of pushing the fabric and the pattern, and so it's all nice and smooth. Then I was just saying you'd get a washable marker. I love the Crayola washables, and you could do your pattern markings. Now I'm just pointing out here, when I'm trying to line up other pattern pieces, a quick and easy way to do this is, because I've already put the back bodice on there, all I need to do now is line up that ruler, because I know that line on that pattern is straight because I've already pinned it. So now I just need to be lining up the sleeve with that ruler, so the grain line on the sleeve. And you can do this with lots of pattern pieces, especially if you've got little bits and pieces around. I always use at least the first pattern piece I've put on there to then look at the grain line and make sure the grain line's straight on other pattern pieces that are next to it. Also, you can do a measuring tape, so you'd get the grain line and you're measuring to the selvage, or to the fold in this case. I know the grain line's just slightly out of frame here on the sleeve, but essentially that's what I'm doing. I'm getting the measuring tape, measuring it on the grain line, and going to the fold and to the selvage to make sure I'm getting that measurement right. And always measure it in 2 points on that grain line, because if you're just doing it in one, it might still be a bit wonky. So I'm really trying to adhere here to the pattern layouts. I think I'm just running through all my tips that I was saying. So when you're laying out patterns, always iron them first. Put your fabric right sides together. Definitely look at the layout in the pattern, because it's well worth it. It will save you fabric and time, and make sure you really line up all those grain lines and use the other pattern pieces to help line up those grain lines. So yeah, I think that's about it. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.